Hi guys, welcome to Basement Supercar Build, the channel where we see if an average guy like me can design and build his own mid-engine car. This video will be a highlights video of the work that was finished this week. If you want to see the actual work take place, watch the full-length video for this week. And with that out of the way, let's get started on this week's video.
So last night I finished welding the top on the left fuel tank, which was the second fuel tank. And after it cooled off, I leak tested it, stopped up all the holes, put a balloon on it, and left it for 24 hours, and everything looked good. So I have two fuel tanks that are finished. They don't leak, and they are bolted in the car, suspended in rubber, the way they will go permanently. I'll have to remove them again sometime in the future, but for right now I'm done with them. I need to mount this Holley fuel pump, but I'm waiting on an extender bracket to get the fuel pump to the bottom of the tank. I have this clear hose here just stuck on. It'll go to the filler neck, wherever that filler is exactly on the car. The other tank has the sending unit for the fuel gauge. On the right hand side of the tank, it's just stuck in the hole. I need to get the right fasteners, and then I will seal that in permanently with some urethane and bolts. And then the hose is connected for the vent line on that side. And for now, well, and also the crossover tube here, just stuck on. It's the right length. And just looking at hose fits, everything looks like it clears really nice. I can trim these black hoses off just a little and get them away from touching the clear one, but I'll do that later when everything's going in for final fitting. But for now, I'm finished with these tanks. I am waiting on a couple of parts to come in before I absolutely bolt everything in solid in the tops of the tanks. And I'm also waiting for brake lines. I've ordered the material for the brake lines, the line, the ends, the T's. I'm going to start running brake lines. Bought a couple of tools here. Got a tubing cutter and a tubing bender. And I have a tool ordered to put the flares on the end of the tubing that should come in here in a day or two also. So right now I'm waiting on the material for the brake lines, and once it comes in, we'll start running brake lines and get all the brake connections hooked up. Let's see, anything else? No, there's a stack of foam here that goes inside the fuel cell, this last fuel cell that we welded last night. Once I have all the fuel pump parts in and assembled and cut to length and have everything finalized like I want to put it in the tank, I will insert that foam through the hole in the top down in the tank and place it in a position. I'll keep the fuel from sloshing in this tank. And if you remember, we put a baffle in the other tank, so it keep it from sloshing. And that is all I have for now. That is my update, and we will get back to working on something else soon. I'm still waiting on brake parts to come in and fuel tank parts. So while I'm waiting, I'm going to work on, I mentioned I had come up with a solution to make this joint or this area here stronger, and I have brought my tools out and some scrap paper, and I'm going to start working on a template for something that fits in here that I'm happy with. And then once I get the template, I will back it into SolidWorks, model a part, and have them laser cut and bent. But so we're making paper dolls, I guess, right now until we get a pattern that we like. So and while I'm thinking about it, I did get one of the brake parts in today. I got a tool here, a flaring tool. I don't know if you've seen these before. It's a Titan tool that you stick the brake line in, tighten the fitting down. You can make, I believe it makes bubble and double 45 flares, but we'll see how that works once the brake line gets here in a day or two. And I've got some little clamps I'm hoping to use to attach the brake line or hold it in place on the car, but I don't know for sure they're the correct size yet. But let's get busy making some little patterns or templates out of this paper here and see if I can come up with something I like to brace this front shock tower mount a little bit better. Okay, this is what I've come up with. I'm going to laser cut and bend a U-shaped piece like this, and this piece will bolt down through the tube all the way through with the nuts on the bottom side and clamp in place, and I'm going to weld it along the inside or outside, probably the outside, to this other piece. So once it's bolted here and bolted down here, that's a nice support gusset. And I can actually weld it along this diagonal on the inside also. But I believe that's what I'm going to go with. I think that'll strengthen that joint up quite a bit. Well, I have these pieces welded in. I don't know for sure that this will be strong enough, but it is stronger, and I think it'll be okay. It looks pretty strong. But the brace is welded in, there's holes drilled in it. I've got to transfer the holes through the aluminum tube out the bottom, and we'll put a steel plate on the bottom to bolt all that through to sandwich these parts. Well, after waiting several days for brake line parts to come in, they finally arrived today. And here's a 25-foot roll of brake line and a few different bags of different size fittings that if I ordered correctly, this should be everything I need to run the brake lines. I'll have to make some mounts to mount the end of the flexible cable. There's a mount made solid to the frame. Actually, it goes down to the bottom. It's where the hard line and the flexible line meet together. And not quite sure how these are going to run just yet, but I'm going to see if I can make a straightening tool to straighten this tubing as straight as possible, and then try to figure out how the lines are going to run and start installing those. But let's get started working on that and see how much we get done. Well, I ordered all the material for my brakes, but misordered a few parts. Never run brake lines before, and I was having some issues with the different types of flares and the different size tubing. I thought I had everything ordered correctly, but I am using 1/4-inch tubing, but the fittings and the T that I bought are 4 3/16 tubing, so obviously that won't work. And let's see, I bought a flaring tool. Don't remember if I showed you this before or not, but it worked very well. It came highly recommended. I read a lot of comments on it, and it does bubble and double flare depending on which end you use. And the flares look pretty good. I'm happy with that. If they'll seal, I haven't tried anything to see how it seals yet. This is what I'm doing on the car. I started running some tubes here. The one in the rear actually goes to the front brakes, and the one in the front goes to the rear brakes. But I've got my lines bent. I've got to put some insulating tubing on these and clamps to hold them in place. These two tubes will join together with a union. That goes to the rear of the car. This one will come down and attach to a T, and I'll have a brake line running both directions for both front brakes. They'll tie into the flexible line under here, and they clip into a bracket to hold them in place. And see if I can get where you can see this. I bolted the bracket here, drilled a hole, and bolted this to hold the hose in place. And it routes in and around and back over to the calipers. That holds it in place out of the way so there's no kinking or binding when you run the steering from lock to lock. But I'm happy with all of that, the way it looks. I've got to make the mounts here to attach this flexible line to, but the mounts were left out of my lines when they were shipped, and I called today to tell them they were missing, and they'll ship them to me here in a few days. But until I get those, I don't know the exact dimensions, so I can't make the mounts. I want to wait till those come in so I get the mounts 1-to-1 for the clips to make sure I have plenty of room and clearance for them to snap in and work correctly, or else I'll just be making those mounts twice. But I ordered brake line parts again yesterday. They should be here maybe tomorrow or Monday at the latest. I had hoped I'd ordered everything correctly, so this would be my last order. But I believe that there's still going to be a few things that I'm missing. There's going to be some mismatched components. But I won't know for sure until they get here. But I still think I'm going to need to purchase a few more things to finish up the brakes. And the brake line that continues to the rear will go here just under the engine and connect to a T, and then that's where I'll split and run a line to the left and the right rear calipers. Not quite sure how I'm going to route those lines yet. They may have to come down and run here on the outside because the engine mounts are in the way. And these brake lines are really short. They're not for the Corvette. These were for the Cadillac CTS-V to attach to the calipers correctly. But I'm either going to have to make a mount extend out here somehow, or extend this flexible cable somehow. Not quite sure on that yet. That's why I'm working on the fronts first, because I don't know exactly what I'm going to do on the rears, but I'll figure something out eventually. But that's my update for today.